Okay, this is the October energy reading where I'm going to tap into the energies of October 2024 and deliver some intuitive guidance in the next 20 or so minutes. And what I'm really focused on is giving you messages, insight, awareness, perspectives, sometimes even tools that are going to empower you for the month ahead, for the experiences of that you're going to have this upcoming month, so that you may greet them with you being in your power. And that way you're able to get the most out of the month and feel more in flow, more in harmony, more of the good stuff that you've been calling in. And let's just dive in right there. So if you're on this video, I know you have been calling in good things into your life. So many people are, but you in particular have been on a path of maybe experimenting with manifestation or just really getting focused on the things that you want in your life. And I feel like that has maybe been a very confusing path for yourself because maybe you don't know what it is you truly, truly want. And I say that, and I'm going to like pause and let that sink in for a second because you're like, okay, no, I do know what I want. I know I want to have like better relationships. I know that I want to have like the side business take off or whatever it is. You have these goals, but that's not what you really want. What you really want is the feeling beneath that. And so getting in touch with that can sometimes be a huge game changer because sometimes we're putting so much pressure on the outcome or the goal or the manifestation or whatever you want to call it, the thing that you want in your life more than anything. Maybe it's like something that you need it to heal. You're like praying for healing for something, calling that in. Okay, well, what would that give you? What feeling would that give you inside? And maybe really like closing your eyes and like feeling it in your body. Like, what would that feel like in the body? And then realize that you don't have to get the thing, get the manifestation in order to feel that way. Because some of you are placing so much pressure on yourselves to have these outcomes in your life in order to feel certain ways. And that is a subtle form of codependency. And, you know, gosh, it's a fear. It can create a lot of fear. It can create a lot of stress. And it can actually not allow the thing that you're seeking, that you're wanting in your life to come through. It's actually can become a block to that coming in your life because you're not allowing yourself to see where you already have the power to be in that state of being, whatever that is. So I do feel like October is going to be a month where you're going to be experiencing things that you asked for, have been asking for, particularly around the solstice in June. Some of those things are starting to come to fruition. And so just be open to noticing where things are coming to fruition, even if it's like the smallest little thing where it's like, I've been asking for people to treat me kinder. I've been asking for, more money or whatever it is. And sometimes we get so caught up that it's not like the perfect outcome that we are blind to the little trickles of that energy coming in. So the more you can affirm like, okay, well, this wasn't the perfect scenario. There's a lot of things that I would change about how this particular manifestation came to light. However, I'm going to recognize the little glimmer of the things that I did want, that I did ask for. So, where can you recognize that in your day-to-day life? That is going to be a challenge, a good challenge for you to take on in October. The energy is very supportive of like, yeah, feeling good about where you're heading and like the direction you've been going in your life, through affirming even just the micro moments of alignment. Because so many times, again, we're placing so much pressure on, like, I want this thing and it has to be fully aligned, fully perfect. And then we miss the little juicy good moments in between. And so this is about cultivating the ability to recognize what's going right in your life. So many of us that have had a lot of pain, a lot of hardships, a lot of struggles, a lot of heartbreak, you name it, hard stuff happening in life. Sometimes we can get overly focused on that, right? And it can be the only thing that we pay attention to sometimes because it is actually a safety protection mechanism, right? Sometimes, and this is very subconscious, this does not happen on a conscious level. So you might be watching this and saying, well, but I know that creating, failures or things that don't go right in my life, that doesn't make me feel good. That doesn't make me feel safer. I know that consciously. However, there's a lot of reasons subconsciously why that would be a protection safety mechanism for you. Sometimes it's like, I don't let myself go into the real joy, the real pleasure of getting my goals and my manifestations because I'm afraid to lose that. So it's actually protecting me from loss to not have the thing that I want. So, by placing attention on the areas of your life where you already have the energy, similar energy to the things that you're asking for, can start to unlock that mechanism of whatever is protecting you. The other thing that really comes into his relationships, there are so many people out there. I know I have been in this, and this is something I'm still working through to just normalize that for everybody. If you had everything you wanted, what would change in your relationships? Some people might not be happy about that. Some people might be jealous. Some people might take offense or be triggered because they don't have that in their life. And so a lot of times we can block or suppress the very things that we're asking for in our life because it triggers these, again, deep subconscious protection mechanisms, specifically around loss in particular. Would you potentially lose a relationship over getting something good in your life? And that does happen. And how would that make you feel? Can you hold yourself through loss? So I feel like that's really big, a big question for a lot of you, and your nervous systems probably felt that in some way, shape, or form. And I actually want to invite you to just check in with your body, maybe pause the video right now, or, just scan your body. How does it feel when I talk about, like, can you hold yourself through loss? Are there losses in the past that you haven't dealt with fully? Have you been able to let go of loss in the past, or are you just holding on to it? When we're holding on to the stuff from the past also as a protection mechanism, it also blocks new energy from flowing in. So if you want a new experience, you have to be willing to let go of the baggage of the past, but you have to switch off the protection mechanism. And the way you do that is being comfortable with the idea of loss and the emotions that come with it. That's one thing, but it feels very prominent for October. So, yeah, just noticing how that affects your body. So like even just doing like a little body scan and noticing, do you feel connected to your body? Do you feel nothing in your body? If you don't feel anything in your body when I'm talking about loss, that's actually probably a sign that is an extremely scary topic for you. And it's so scary and there's so much fear around it that you have disconnected from yourself, from your body, because it's too overwhelming. And so where you start with that is just by recognizing that, allowing that to be, like, not trying to force yourself to be like, oh my gosh, now I have to work through all this loss because I'm disconnected. And it definitely affects your ability to manifest, and what kinds of energy you do manifest. You're more likely to create chaotic things and things that you don't want when you're disconnected from your body. because you need your soul's essence here present, not out here. But these are the real things that keep people stuck from creating their life the way they want it to. And so that's why the clearing the trauma and the emotional work is so important, even though it's so hard. It frees up space for the good things to come in, but it takes a great degree of courage. And so maybe just paying attention in your life. What are the things, maybe this month is a great time to start really noticing for yourself. When do I feel really connected and present? And I like when you scan your body, like you can feel your limbs, all the parts of your body, like down to your feet and your fingers, and you don't feel disconnection, numbness, nothingness. Because again, when there is disconnection, nothingness, numbness, there is fear there. And it's usually so great that the body is intelligently shutting that off so you don't feel it because it would be too overwhelming. So everything I've been talking about is also like in terms of noticing the little moments where, wow, that felt really good. It starts to open up the idea that, okay, there are good things already present right now. It kind of gives you more capacity to look at those fears without being overwhelmed. And like that's the whole reason why we hold on to trauma is because it was too overwhelming to deal with in the first place. And if you're in a state of constant overwhelm and disconnection, you're not really in a place to process that stuff and let go of it. And I know this may be a hard message for some people to hear, but it comes from compassion because it's time for you to put the ego aside that says, you know what, I've done my work around those losses of the past and I don't really need to do any more around that. I feel good about it. But then when I'm talking about loss, you notice that you're either extremely triggered or you're extremely numb and you don't feel anything in your body. Those are signs that there's more to do. And, loss is one of the core wounds that so many people deal with. And there's so many things that we've lost in our life. And it can prevent us from having good things in our life too, because it's this never ending, perpetuating cycle of fear of loss. And like, so we block good things, but then we're resentful, we're frustrated, we question ourselves, we doubt ourselves. And so that's not a very fun place to be in. And these are what are called trauma loops. And they're very they're there for an intelligent reason. And so just showing yourself compassion, I think, is the medicine of the month of October and really being able to start to be compassionate with yourself. So it's not like, unless you feel ready, like I'm ready to move through this loss. If you're in that space where you're feeling super disconnected, you can't feel anything in your body, you're probably not ready to move through that. You need to work on building compassion for yourself, building that muscle to feel good in the current present moment. And then from there, when you've cultivated enough of that, those energies within you, then you have almost like a reservoir to pull from to go into this deeper, harder work because it is fucking hard and it is not fucking fun at all. But again, it creates the space for everything that you've been calling in. So, just remember that when these things are coming up, I feel like there's so many people that are really frustrated with their manifestations or like, why has this been so hard? Why do I feel stuck? Um, you know, all these kind of like, again, doubtful energies, like I'm doing all the steps right, I'm doing the right things, and it's not really working out the way I wanted to. I'm not really feeling that much better about things. It's just because you need to cultivate that compassion and the reservoir of feeling good in order to go a layer deeper. It just shows you there's a layer deeper. And if you can again look at the moments this month, the things that come up, especially around the theme of loss, and show yourself compassion in those moments, then you're doing it, right? You're doing it. However, I will say some of us don't even really know what that feels like. I feel like these are like cliche terms. I talk a lot about like compassion and acceptance, and they're foundational energies to be able to heal yourself. But we don't really have a frame of reference of what that really is to give ourselves compassion. And if that is you, I would invite you to explore letting go of your ego, right? So, gosh, the ego is such a loaded term because there's so many people like screaming about the ego on the internet. I talk a lot about the ego on the internet. The ego is just your identity, your personality. But most of us have that wrapped up in our wounds. We've identified our personalities as these people that have all these coping mechanisms to avoid loss, but that's not really who you are. That's the wounded ego, kind of like usurping or like taking over your true essence, your true personality that wants to shine through, but it's being driven in fear. Right. And that's how you'll know, if you're in your wounded ego, you're doing things like comparing yourself to other people, you are having negative self-talk, you are not really feeling empowered a lot. You are yeah, there's so many things. And anxious, that disconnection actually, when you're feeling like disconnected and numb, if that's your space that you live from in life, that's a key that you've started to create a whole identity around your wounds, and it's just normal, right? Most people do this. So my message today isn't, I don't feel like very uplifting. We're talking about a lot of heavy stuff, but remember, it is all to uplift you, right? So if you're starting to piece together like, wow, I'm really letting my wounds drive the direction of my life. If I'm doing a lot of things to avoid loss, for example, that would be another thing, like another example that you were in your wounded ego. If you're doing a lot of things to avoid pain, if you're doing a lot of things to control your life, you're in your wounded ego. And so how can you take a step back and let your true essence shine through? And that starts with compassion. It's one of the basic energies. But the ego has a hard time with compassion as well, because there's so many things. If you feel like compassion is like, I have to please other people, or like, there's so many things that can be wrapped up into even the word of compassion, how we give ourselves compassion. I can only be compassionate with myself when things are going perfect around me. I can only be compassionate with myself when everyone else is feeling comfortable and safe. I can only be compassionate with myself when maybe it's the opposite, when I'm feeling really down, but I can't be compassionate with myself when I'm feeling amazing. So those are all conditions, like these like choices, these conflicts of like, well, I want compassion, but this is what I have to do it subconsciously. Those are the equations that are at play that most of you may not be aware of, but maybe are starting to come to light through the conversation here. And maybe just taking a minute to check in with your heart. Like, what does your heart want you to know about compassion? Maybe the only time you can experience compassion. So if you check in, like, what does my heart want me to know about compassion, and where I could be better at giving myself compassion? It's not about other people, because that's another thing, like self-sacrificing. A lot of people feel like that's compassion as well, subconsciously. That's what they were taught. So checking in like with your true pure essence, what do I need to know about compassion this month? Or where am I blocking compassion? And allowing the heart to answer. And if you don't get an answer, you get nothing, then that is fear blocking the energy of compassion. There's a wound around compassion that's been too much for you to look at. Or like that's how you learn compassion. It could be like very, very literal. Sometimes that's how the subconscious mind works. It's very, very literal, that like compassion is when I'm out of my body. That's the only time I can experience compassion, is when I've got my emotions shut down. That's the only time I'm worthy of compassion. And that's also very common programming that a lot of us were raised with, where we had parents that were rewarding certain emotions, punishing certain emotions. You may have been subconsciously wired to only give yourself compassion when you're not feeling anything. So, it's really about being gentle with where you're at and bringing that compassion in, even when you're like starting to realize these things of like, wow, okay, I have some kind of twisted belief systems, subconscious belief systems about when I can give myself compassion. And that's okay. I'm going to choose compassion. Even if I can't fully grasp what that is in the moment, you can still ask for it. The energy of October is very compassionate energy. And that's why it brings things up like loss, because compassion is one of the like most soothing, healing energy for loss. And so you'll see through this whole conversation, if you're like really struggling to let go of loss, process loss, it's very triggering to you, and or you have things going on where you can't really tap into compassion, or you only allow yourself to give yourself compassion when you're like perfect, or there's so many things, then you can see how this is like a really locked in trauma loop. That's what I would call that. When we are blocked from the energy that will help us heal, and we are really afraid of the wound, right? So it's like it's just a mismatch. You have to be able to bring in the good, juicy energy that is going to be the healing for that wound before you can even go into the wound. So I feel like that's also something that a lot of people get caught up in their healing journey, is that they are trying to heal their wounds of loss, for example, without being able to tap into the true energy that will heal it, which is compassion. And so you need to be able to tap into those energies first, and then you can go in and to resolve, you can actually start to work on resolving and letting go of the wound itself. So many people just dive into the wound, and then they are not seeing progress in their healing journey, or they're just processing a lot of emotions, but it doesn't actually feel like anything is getting better. Maybe it just feels like you're constantly on a hamster wheel of healing or doing things, and that you have to be on that hamster wheel of constantly doing things to balance your nervous system, to regulate yourself. Um, that's a sign that you haven't been able to tap in that to the true energy that will heal it. And so this is just one example of loss and compassion. There are lots of other things. And I feel called to finally introduce that I have a free quiz that will help you understand, based on your current, like how you are reacting and responding to the environment around you, that will tell you these things. What are the types of fears that you need to work through? And what is the type of energy that you need to bring into your life, feel really comfortable with, and give yourself that before you can move into that fear. So I have that quiz. It's linked at the bottom of this video, and I'm so excited for it because it's something that this is what I've put together after observing a lot of healing work with other people, me guiding that for other people, thousands of hours, and then also thousands of hours of self-healing. So, if that quiz is calling your name, I invite you to check that out. Of course, there's also other links below this video that will, if you would feel called to just do some work with me around this stuff and start to really feel comfortable, not just consciously, but subconsciously, with the idea of being connected with yourself, letting go of loss, and being really self-compassionate in all situations, no matter what's going on around you. If that's something you're like, I just need that, I invite you to check out my links. I have a women's group that we do healings in every month. And then also, I have one spot open for new clients, new one on one clients this month. So if that's calling your name, I'd love to hear from you. Let's set up a discovery call and chat. If you're a current client watching this and this conversation has been like, whoa, I encourage you to book a session and get some support and that you don't have to do this all on your own. And sometimes that's the most compassionate thing you can do is be like, okay, I have compassion to even see where I'm limiting myself in these ways or where I have blocks. And I can see that with compassion. I don't have to be defensive about it. I can see that I need support and have compassion around that for myself, that I don't have to do it all myself. So if you are feeling called, I would love to support you this month. Otherwise, I hope you have a beautiful October, just full of all this gold, compassionate energy that is here to help you bring in your manifestations. Okay. Bye.